Hello and welcome to Kent Tonight, live here on KMTV. I'm Chloe Brewster and here are your top stories on Thursday the 26th of March. Manslaughter for Mourns. Father and son imprisoned for a total of more than 30 years for causing 4-year-old's death.
I'd just like to thank Kent Police for all their help. Thank everyone for the support. I'm over the moon with the justice today for my little boy Peter. Just want time to grieve now, and that's all I can say today. Thank you very much for your help.
And money for Medway as 5 towns set to receive £60 million in Pride and Place funding.
Fixing potholes, which is a big concern for all motorists. More sort of CCTV to make people feel safer.
And finally, history is made. Celebrations continue for the first ever female archbishop officially enthroned at Canterbury Cathedral.
What I do want is for it to get to that place and time when we no longer say it's the first.
A total of more than 31 years in prison has been given to a father and son whose drunken driving in Southfleet last year caused the death of 4-year-old Peter Morn. Owen and Patrick Morn were convicted of manslaughter at Maidstone Crown Court yesterday with a packed, emotional courtroom. Finn McDermott joins us live from Southfleet on the road where the crash occurred. Finn, tell us about this case. Where did it start and where are we now?
Well, Chloe, this case started back on June 1st of last year, and since then we've had an ongoing trial, police investigations, resulting in the conviction, as you mentioned there, of Owen and Patrick Morn on manslaughter charges. Now, I'm standing on New Barn Road in Southfleet, and this is the location where Peter Morn, only 4 years old, died after a collision between 2 cars, one being driven by Owen and Patrick Morn, the other being driven by Lowell, his father, with Peter inside. And you can see behind me actually some tributes to Peter Rabbit, as his family called him. It say, "Rest in peace, Peter Rabbit, forever for our blue-eyed boy." This tribute has plenty of the things that he liked: Haribo's, Diet Cokes, there's a small drivable car there as well, and a sign saying Peter's Road. That speaks to the emotion that was on display at this trial yesterday afternoon in Maidstone. We've been hearing all about this trial. We've seen CCTV, we've seen social media footage. As I say, this has been a long time this trial has been going on. I prepared a short video piece that will tell us a bit more about the case itself that we can watch now.
Peter Morn died on the 1st of June 2025 from a collision between 2 cars, driven by Owen and Patrick Morn, the other containing Peter and his wider family, driven by Lowell Morn. Earlier on that day, Owen and Patrick were filmed drinking in the Jolly Night pub in Rochester, then being seen by CCTV outside the City Wall wine bar. They would later drive onto the A2, recognising the car containing the other members of the Morn family, with Lowell in the driver's seat. In the other car, Owen was at the wheel, with Patrick in the passenger seat. They were said to have chased the other car for several miles across the A2. Both then pulled into the wrong side of New Barn Road, and at 60 miles an hour, Patrick's vehicle clipped Lowell's, causing it to spin out of control and roll up to 3 times. That impact caused the death of Peter Morn and significant injury to his father Lowell. Immediately after the crash, Owen and Patrick drove away from it and took steps to avoid detection by removing the front registration plate of their truck. When it was discovered by police, they found a pushchair still embedded underneath it. Owen was arrested on the 2nd of June, having returned to Kent to hand himself into police, while Patrick was found the next day in bed and having been drinking. During the court case, both men were cleared of murder in relation to Peter, as well as being cleared of inflicting grievous bodily harm with intent to Lowell and attempted grievous bodily harm to Hayley and Annarika, the mum and little sister of Peter, who were also in the car. After the sentence of almost 31 years in total for the 2 men, the senior prosecutor read a statement outside the court on behalf of the family.
We will treasure the memories we made with him in his short life. No sentence handed down today can bring Peter back or lessen the impact of our loss. Our lives are changed forever. We wish to express our sincere thanks to everyone who has supported us throughout this investigation and court process. We are grateful for the professionalism and compassion shown at every stage, and we now ask that our privacy is respected as we continue to grieve.
Hayley also spoke briefly outside the court on her thanks to the police.
I'd just like to thank Kent Police for all their help. Thank everyone for the support. I'm over the moon with the justice today. for my little boy Peter. Just want time to grieve now, and that's all I can say today. Thank you very much for your help.
For Hayley, Lowell and Anarika, today is the end point of a case that's taken over a year to be fully completed. According to the senior prosecutor, now they can begin to rebuild their lives and properly grieve. Finn McDermott for KMTV in Maidstone.
As you say, that was over a year of court case there. Can you talk us through those proceedings quickly?
Absolutely. I should mention that it's under a year of court cases since it happened on June 1st of last year. But in court, the judge said that Owen and Patrick were the aggressors and had terrorised the victims. They discussed the crash, as well as the fact that both the men had drank 25 bottles and pints of lager between them over a 6-hour period. They were said to have been in a fury and intent on causing serious harm to the occupants of the other vehicle. It's worth mentioning that deliberations on the specific charges took 17 hours in total before the court was able to confirm the sentence to Owen and Patrick, that being one of just under 31 years between the two men. Now, in terms of the impact on the family, the Morns were also convicted of inflicting grievous bodily harm to Lowell Morn. Their actions left the man paralysed from the waist down, a permanent brain injury and unlikely to ever walk again. Lowell said in court, "The death of Peter has broken me. He was too good for this world. Life will never be the same without him." The other passengers in the car, Peter's mum Hayley and his little sister Anarika, escaped with minor injuries. In one of the additional impact statements that was read in Maidstone Crown Court by Hayley, she said he was very popular at school. All the teachers loved him. They used to take him to the staff room, give him biscuits, and he had so many friends at school. This has affected more than me and my family. This has affected so many people. Me and Peter were always together. We were never without each other. He was my other half, my companion. I will never know who Peter would have grown up to be. He will never have another birthday or another Christmas, and this is your fault, she said to Owen and Patrick. Our family will never be the same again. She finished with, ours is a family surviving, not living.
Thank you so much, Finn. It's obviously a really upsetting story. Now, a huge solar park near Faversham is nearing completion. The massive solar farm at Cleve Hill, which will generate up to 373 megawatts, enough to power 100,000 homes, began back in 2020 after planning permissions were granted by the government. The site spans the size of 500 football fields, and while it was expected to power housing, recent agreements have handed power generated over to supermarket firm Tesco and Shell. While the array is operational, it is still under construction, with a final phase expected to be completed around summer of this year. Instagram and YouTube has been found liable in a first-of-its-kind lawsuit in the US. The court heard how owners had deliberately designed the platforms to get children addicted with little regard for their safeguarding. Social media apps such as TikTok and Snap were also to face trial, but they settled before it went to court. With more details, our reporter Christian Hawthorne joins me now to tell me more. So can you tell me, where did this all start?
Well, interestingly, Chloe, it started with a 20-year-old woman who was the plaintiff in the case. She was referred to by her lawyers as Kaylee. She testified in February saying that her early use of social media exasperated her depression and suicidal thoughts and triggered her addiction to social media in the first place. She said that the apps caused her to develop diagnosed body dysmorphia. Something that maybe a lot of children can relate to when they go to school and stuff. She said that she would sometimes go to the toilet during school to check her notifications, and that she started using YouTube, for instance, at just 6 years old. So she had quite an early start to social media that then affected her later on in life. The lawyers representing Meta and Google owned YouTube argued that Kaylee turned to the platforms as a coping mechanism or a means of escaping the already existing mental health issues. But the jury found that Meta and Google owned YouTube had been negligent in designing or operating Instagram and YouTube, and that it had a substantial factor in the plaintiff's harm, saying that they were liable for not only adequately warning users about the dangers of the site, but maybe adding to your difficulties as well.
Mm-hmm. And what was the result of that court case? You know, it's a 20-year-old taking on these huge platforms. Tell us more about that.
Well, it went quite well for her. They were charged. So Meta Instagram and YouTube to be specific, they were charged $3 million in damages. And the jurors also recommended an additional $3 million in further damages after deciding the companies had acted with malice, oppression or fraud in harming children using their platforms.
And just quickly for me, can you explain to me, what does this mean for people here in this county?
Well, I mean, over the past few months, we've seen a lot to do with Australia banning social media for under 16s. Now the UK government are aiming to take that on. They've put that out there that they're willing to do that or look into it, and they've started their tests, which I believe ends on the 26th of May, to kind of look at online curfews for children, maybe more regulations for open AI, which is interesting. And we've already seen some schools like the St John Wallace Academy where their phones are banned in school. So we could be seeing a lot more schools doing that. We could see new regulations to apps, but there's a lot really in the future, but more regulations, I'm assuming, for sure.
Definitely. I mean, we're even seeing in schools at the moment phones getting locked away, but we're interested to see how it goes with social media.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Now it's time for a quick break, but coming up we have the weather, so you can start to plan what you'll get up to this weekend. We'll also be exploring how Mudbury residents may wish to spend some money there. See you after the break. Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight Live here on KMTV. Now, 3 areas in Medway are set to receive £20 million over the next decade to support left-behind communities. Luton in Chatham, Reed Common in Stroud and Twiddle in Gillingham will all be included, with communities in charge of how that cash is spent. Local democracy reporter Ollie Leader was finding out in Gillingham where locals want that money to go.
A sleepy shopping parade in the heart of Gillingham that could soon see major rejuvenation, with Twiddle set to receive £20 million in Pride in Place funding over the next decade. One of 3 areas across Medway receiving this additional money from the government.
It's really about empowering communities. So the idea is that you set up local community and neighbourhood panels where the community has a real say in how that money is spent, and we work with the wider community as well through surveys to understand the local priorities so that that money is spent in a meaningful way and it's spent in a way that actually benefits the local area, and it's for areas that have been overlooked for such a long time. With
£2 million earmarked a year for the area, locals appear divided on the money and where it should go.
Fixing potholes, which is a big concern for all motorists. More sort of CCTV to make people feel safer.
Right, you don't need £20 million spent on Twiddle, I don't think. You ain't nothing really to spend it on round here.
Along with this cash, new powers will be introduced to help tackle boarded up shops and block vape stores. How that will actually materialise will be the talk of the town. Ollie Leader in Twiddle.
Ollie, can you tell me, what do people in Medway actually want with this money in... Sorry, we start that again. With this money in Medway. So Ollie joins us in the studio now. Ollie, what do people in Medway actually want to see done with this money?
There's so many things. Obviously, we know Medway has some real areas of deprivation, particularly in Luton, Reed Common and Twiddle, where the money is going. That's £2 million every year for the next 10 years. A sizable investment from the government, according to the local MP. Sometimes people love complaining. It's easier to know what people don't want rather than they do want. Obviously, you heard in my piece, someone doesn't want to see any money going to Twiddle at all, would rather go to other areas in the 5 towns. But a few recurring themes came up: public safety in parks, CCTV, making the area look a bit nicer, a bit tidier. Obviously, pesky potholes came up, as well as investing in shops and local businesses. We heard about the butcher, the baker when we were out and about. These are the things that people really care about in the local area. Though we do have to remember that political aspiration doesn't always match political reality. When thinking about this money, we have an election, general election, in the next coming years, that meaning that some of these 10 years there could be a different government in charge with different funding priorities. And I put this to Nashaba Khan, the MP for the area. How does she see that being tackled by the government? Is this money actually ring-fenced, guaranteed for Twiddle, or are they just guaranteed around £6 million in the coming years rather than the full 20 million? Let's hear from her now.
Obviously, unfortunately, I cannot decide what future governments' plans are and what they might decide to do in terms of the investment that they put in. But what I am clear about is that this government is determined that places like Gillingham, places like Twiddle, who have been let down for a long, long time actually, get the investment and the money that they need so that we can continue to grow and regenerate. And I will be doing everything I can to ensure that that funding is protected for the longer term.
So how does this actually work then, Ollie?
Well, it's all about people making their own decisions in the community. It isn't about Westminster, it isn't about Whitehall, it's not even really about Medway Council, though obviously councillors and the local MP will have some sort of view and opinion where the money should go. It's about community leaders taking action. There'll be these community boards that will gather information about what people want, will canvass to find out issues in the area, and they will invest that in projects. This could be one big project, several smaller projects. It could be anything from paddle courts and basketball courts to more bins in the park. It really could be anything. And it is to do with left behind communities, which many people in Medway do feel a little bit left behind, speaking to them on the streets. whether or not this money will materialise in a way people actually want, and whether these community boards will represent every single voice in the community, that's harder to tell at this stage.
And now for your top sports stories of the day. Gillingham manager Gareth Ainsworth is ready to make significant changes this summer after a run of 4 straight defeats. Ainsworth, who is rarely critical of his players, admits that some aren't up to the task of improving the team's fortunes, and he may have to offload some that don't meet his standards. With lots of contracts up, Ainsworth plans to bring in new players to help the team progress. Despite the lack of endless resources in the summer, Ainsworth is determined to revamp the team in a sustainable and successful way. Gillingham travel to Crawley, who sits just a point above the relegation zone, on Saturday. Maidstone United manager George Elokobi is ready to give 17-year-old striker Mark Baroque a start. It comes after Elokobi's praise for Baroque after his appearance as a second-half substitute at Chesham last Saturday. Elokobi told his senior players, "If we as a team aren't doing it and a young player is coming through, why not give them a chance?" Maidstone United are 9th in the National League South following the midweek results. This weekend, it's do or die for the Invicta Dynamos as they take on the Solent Devils in the National Ice Hockey League Division 1 South playoff quarter-finals. Invicta coach Carl Lennon understands the pressure is on as he declares everything's on the line. But with a perfect record against the Solent Devils this season and the return of key defenceman Dan Scott after injury, the Dynamos are set to win a semi-final spot. Both sides meet at Planet Ice Gillingham on Saturday, with a return at Solent on Sunday. Seam bowler Matt Milnes returns to Kent after signing a 3-year contract and says that he's the best version of himself that he's ever been. After leaving for Yorkshire in 2023, Milnes faced a tough injury-riddled stint, but impressed with a career-best 738 in the One Day Cup last season against Sussex in a 6-wicket win. Despite his time at Yorkshire not going as planned, Matt Milnes has no regrets and is looking forward to work under Kent's new head coach, Adam Hollyoake. With the fast-approaching season, Milnes is determined and ready to give his best for Kent. Now, don't forget you can keep up to date with all your latest stories by logging on to our website kmtv.co.uk. There you'll find all of our reports, including this one about a Rochester estate agency hiring help in the form of counselling for their employees.
If I asked you to name a job so stressful a director has arranged for on-site counselling, you might think of a team of brain surgeons or firefighters. But for this estate agent in Rochester, it's become a non-negotiable.
Obviously, as an estate agent, you're dealing with one of the most stressful things in life. You know, moving home, I think death and divorce are all up there. So from a day-to-day, if it's on the estate agent side, people moving house is extremely stressful because of the reasons they may be actually moving. So we deal with lots of traumatic stuff. We might deal with people who are victims of domestic violence, people who are, again, going through a divorce, going through financial difficulties. So all of that stuff has an impact on the staff, and it's stuff we just have to deal with every single day.
The managing director of Red Door employs 19 staff members across its 2 branches in the county, and each one has access to free drop-in sessions with a qualified therapist.
I'm just part of the team, like you said. Some people I see more regularly, some people like the routine, and we've gone on a bit of a journey. Other people will just pop in. Some people say, "Oh, I haven't got anything to talk about," and then an hour later, they're still here. Yeah, it's really powerful. People underestimate the power of listening.
Sharon has been working with Red Door for 2 years and knows only too well the kind of unique pressures an estate agent might be under, as well as the intense scrutiny that comes from being in the public eye.
Red Door Homes recently experienced lots of negative criticism when one of their company cars was found parked on double yellow lines in Canterbury, except they had a permit to be there.
And that member of staff that drives that car said, "I don't want to drive that car anymore. I don't want to drive it around town." And someone stopped and walked in front of their car and looked through the windscreen, and somebody had threatened to burn the car, smash the car up, slash the tyre, all of this. And you go, that individual has to deal with that. And then we had to sit and go, How do I deal with that? I went to walk across Canterbury, across town, and someone said, I don't want to walk with you because I don't want to be associated with you because of the backlash on social media. So we then said, I put something out on social media and said, we are human beings as well.
The counselling available here seems to have opened doors for the staff. Yet Andy's mission to the public to keep that same open mindset for his team does not yet seem to be over. Megan Shaw for KMTV in Rochester.
And now the weather. This evening we're seeing clouds across the board with temperatures highest in the north in Dartford and the lowest down in Ashford in the south. Going into tomorrow morning, temperatures remain around 8 degrees and 9 degrees across the county. Going into the afternoon, temperatures around 12 degrees and 11 degrees, staying pretty cloudy and a little bit of rain there. Going out at the outlook, Saturday we'll be seeing clear skies at 9 degrees, Sunday will be cloudy at 13 degrees and Monday will be clear at 11 degrees. Thanks for joining me, but now it's time for another break, but please don't go anywhere. We'll be going back over our top story once again about the shocking death of Peter Morn and the court case that followed. We'll also be hearing from a guest about Kent Wildlife Trust as they look to raise money for its wilder grazing programme. Thank you very much and see you soon. Hello and welcome to Kent Tonight, live here on KMTV. I'm Chloe Brewster and here are your top stories on Thursday the 26th of March. Manslaughter for Morns. Father and son imprisoned for a total of more than 30 years for causing 4-year-old's death.
I'd just like to thank Kent Police for all their help. Thank everyone for the support. I'm over the moon with the justice today for my little boy Peter. Just one time to grieve now, and that's all I can say today. Thank you very much for your help.
And money for Medway as 5 towns set to receive £60 million in Pride and Place funding.
Fixing potholes, which is a big concern for all motorists. More sort of CCTV to make people feel safer.
And finally, history is made. Celebrations continue for the first ever female archbishop officially enthroned at Canterbury Cathedral.
What I do want is for it to get to that place and time when we no longer say it's the first.
A total of more than 31 years in prison has been given to a father and son whose drunken driving in Southfleet last year caused the death of 4-year-old Peter Morn. Owen and Patrick Morn were convicted of manslaughter at Maidstone Crown Court yesterday with a packed, emotional courtroom. Finn McDermott joins us live from Southfleet on the road where the crash occurred. Finn, can you tell us a little bit about this case, where it started and where we are now?
Absolutely, Chloe. So, as you mentioned there, this crash took place June 1st last year. It was a collision between 2 cars, one carrying Peter Morn, driven by his father Lowell, the other with Owen and Patrick inside. Owen and Patrick's car clipped the rear of the other, causing a collision which then caused the crash that, as you say, claimed Peter Morn's life. And I'm standing here at the spot where that crash occurred on New Barn Road in Southfleet, and behind me you can see some tributes to Peter Rabbit, as he was known by his family, whether that's with the banners they've got that say "Forever for our blue-eyed boy," or the toys or drinks or snacks that presumably were his favourite. As you mentioned there, it's a total of almost 31 years that the two were convicted for, that being for the manslaughter of Peter Morn, as well as causing grievous bodily harm to Peter Morn's father, Lowell. He is likely to never be able to walk again after the crash. Specifically, Owen has been imprisoned for 12 years and 8 months, reduced from 19 for his guilty plea, while Patrick, the brother-in-law of Peter's mother Hayley, Peter's mother's Hayley's father, received 18 years. Both of them will serve 2/3 of that prison sentence before they can be released. To help people who aren't too familiar with the case, I prepared a short video piece.
Peter Morn died on the 1st of June 2025 from a collision between 2 cars, driven by Owen and Patrick Morn, the other containing Peter and his wider family, driven by Lowell Morn. Earlier on that day, Owen and Patrick were filmed drinking in the Jolly Night pub in Rochester, then being seen by CCTV outside the City Wall wine bar. They would later drive onto the A2, recognising the car containing the other members of the Morn family, with Lowell in the driver's seat. In the other car, Owen was at the wheel with Patrick in the passenger seat. They were said to have chased the other car for several miles across the A2. Both then pulled into the wrong side of New Barn Road, and at 60 miles an hour, Patrick's vehicle clipped Lowell's, causing it to spin out of control and roll up to 3 times. That impact caused the death of Peter Morn and significant injury to his father Lowell. Immediately after the crash, Owen and Patrick drove away from it and took steps to avoid detection by removing the front registration plate of their truck. When it was discovered by police, they found a pushchair still embedded underneath it. Owen was arrested on the 2nd of June, having returned to Kent to hand himself into police, while Patrick was found the next day in bed and having been drinking. During the court case, both men were cleared of murder in relation to Peter, as well as being cleared of inflicting grievous bodily harm with intent to Lowell and attempted grievous bodily harm to Hayley and Annarika, the mum and little sister of Peter, who were also in the car. After the sentence of almost 31 years in total for the 2 men, the senior prosecutor read a statement outside the court on behalf of the family.
We will treasure the memories we made with him in his short life. No sentence handed down today can bring Peter back or lessen the impact of our loss. Our lives are changed forever. We wish to express our sincere thanks to everyone who has supported us throughout this investigation and court process. We are grateful for the professionalism and compassion shown at every stage, and we now ask that our privacy is respected as we continue to grieve.
Hayley also spoke briefly outside the court on her thanks to the police.
I'd just like to thank Kent Police for all their help. Thank everyone for the support. I'm over the moon with the justice today for my little boy Peter. Just want time to grieve now, and that's all I can say today. Thank you very much for your help.
For Hayley, Lowell and Anarika, today is the end point of a case that's taken over a year to be fully completed. According to the senior prosecutor, now they can begin to rebuild their lives and properly grieve. Finn McDermott for KMTV in Maidstone.
It's clearly a shocking story, Finn. Can you tell us a little bit more about the court proceedings?
Absolutely. The judge presiding over the case said that Owen and Patrick were the aggressors and that they terrorised their victims. Also that they'd consumed 25 bottles or pints of lager between them. Said to be in a fury, intent on causing serious harm to the occupants of the other vehicle, that being Peter Lovell. Apologies, I mispronounced his name earlier. It's Lovell. Hayley and Anarika. Now, the deliberations on the specific charges took 17 hours. As I mentioned, a total of just under 31 years that they were sentenced to. And in terms of the impact exactly of what happened, the Morns were also convicted, as I mentioned, of inflicting grievous bodily harm on Lovell Marn, leaving him with a life-changing and permanent condition, such as a brain injury, and also paraplegic and unlikely to walk ever again. Lovell said, "The death of Peter has broken me. He was too good for this world. Life will never be the same without him." That was in one of the impact statements read to Maidstone Crown Court during proceedings. Another one of those impact statements came from Peter's mother, Hayley. She said, "This has affected me, this has affected more than me and my family, affected so many people. Me and Peter were always together. We were never without each other. Lovell won't ever walk again. He will never be able to run around after our daughter. We can't live the life we once had and loved." She went on to say, "I will never know who Peter would have grown up to be. He will never have another birthday or another Christmas, and that is your fault. Our family will never be the same again. We are a family surviving, not living."
Thank you, Finn. Now, Kent Wildlife Trust is trying to raise £120,000 to support its grazing project. The Trust warns more than 200 species in Kent are now threatened or endangered as habitats continue to break down. I spoke to a member of the Kent Wildlife Trust earlier to find out more about the project. So, Alison, can you tell me a little bit about this huge project that the Trust is embarking on?
So yeah, we have about 800 animals that we use right across Kent, lots and lots of different nature reserves. So you're probably never too far away from a Kent Wildlife Trust nature reserve that has some grazing animals on it. They are absolutely essential for bringing back missing biodiversity, and we need help really to keep doing the project, to keep expanding the project, to keep improving the project. We do things like training our volunteers to look after them. We do things like incorporating brand new technology like tracking collars to help us find them and help us to evidence how they're looking after the biodiversity. There's just so much going on with the project, and the more we can raise, the more money we can spend on just making the project bigger and better for Kent's biodiversity.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, there are 200 species in Kent that are threatened or endangered. What are the key threats, and how can conservation reduce these threats?
Most of our wildlife in Kent is fragmentation, so breaking up of the places where they want to live so that they can't move from one area to another very easily. One of the things that the livestock are very good at doing is by moving around a landscape, they either help to create the right habitat stepping stones, or in some cases they might even bring animals or plants or seeds along with them as they move. So that helps to move stuff around and sort of reconnect habitats. They also help to create lots of little tiny differences inside the places that they're living. So when we have, say, a cow in a field, them grazing in different places, them sleeping in different places, them dust bathing, so kind of grooming themselves, all creates tiny, tiny little changes that lots of different wildlife can exploit. And it's all these little tiny changes that are what really benefits our wildlife.
So this amazing grazing appeal, how can that contribute potentially to broader environmental issues that the UK currently faces?
there is a concept that we call wilding or rewilding. It's a little bit of a contentious topic, but what we mean by it is by demonstrating that by letting nature lead on her own recovery, like stepping back and giving space for natural things to happen, that nature then comes back and bounces back into those spaces. And that's one of the key things that the grazing project does. The grazing animals are replacements for animals that used to be in our habitats that died out many, many years ago. And after they died out, the animals that were reliant on them have really struggled. So by putting them back in, we can kind of demonstrate how these real kind of low intensity, low impact, nature-led solutions can work. And if they can work in Kent where we're really busy, they can certainly work all over the country, so we can scale this up.
Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you very much.
It's time for one last break, but coming up, we'll see history being made as we find out more about Canterbury's first female bishop, who was crowned in a very fancy ceremony yesterday evening. We'll also be hearing from our resident film expert, who's actually formerly a theology professor, about what this means for Kent and Christianity as a whole. We'll also be taking a look at the new Harry Potter series. See you after the break. Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight, live here on KMTV. Work is set to restart on the site of the former Gravesend police station after updated plans were submitted by housing providers. The now demolished police station has been the site of a drama falling the town after work to redevelop the site into a retirement complex was stalled by almost 3 years. Now the housing company Churchill Living has submitted a new planning application in partnership with not-for-profit housing provider Housing 21. History has been made as the first ever female archbishop has officially been enthroned at Canterbury Cathedral, the first ever in the church's 1,500-year-long history. In a ceremony yesterday, Archbishop Sarah Mullally became the head of the Church of England and of the Anglican community. Our reporter Naila Mohammed was at Canterbury Cathedral yesterday during the installation.
By the authority committed to me, install you, Sarah.
This is the moment that Archbishop Sarah Mullally was installed as the new Archbishop of the Church of England. It's a ceremony that has been in preparation since before Dame Sarah was announced as the new Archbishop back in October, and welcomes bishops from around the world, as well as UK politicians and the Duke and Duchess of Wales.
In this building behind me, history is being made. Archbishop Sarah Mullally is the 106th Archbishop of the Church of England, but also the first ever female Archbishop in the Church's 1,500-year-long history. And earlier I spoke to Bishop Rose, who's the Bishop of Dover, but also the first ever black female bishop in the Anglican Church.
Somewhere along the line, a few men sharing with some women saying, oh, no, they're girls, they're women, no. And we are changing that. We're seeing that change. What I do want is for it to get to that place and time when we no longer say it's the first. And when we don't do that any longer, we will know that it's normal.
As well as becoming the head of the Church of England, Archbishop Mullally is the spiritual leader of the Anglican Communion. That's tens of millions of Anglicans around the world, with the majority of jurisdictions strictly allowing only men to be ordained as bishops.
We've had women bishops in the Church of England since early 2015, so the first woman bishop was consecrated in, I think, January 2015. So it's only 11 years since bishops were first, women bishops were first consecrated. And so it's very significant that in that relatively short period of time, we have now got a female Archbishop of Canterbury.
Speaking to the BBC ahead of the installation, Archbishop Sarah said that the ceremony would be about celebrating women and has already acknowledged the significance of being the first ever female archbishop. Nods to the contribution of women were woven throughout the service on Wednesday, including music celebrating the contribution of female scholars, musicians and writers to the church. In her first sermon, she also acknowledged the survivors caused by the church's past safeguarding failures, one of which caused her predecessor to resign, and the Archbishop also vowed to tackle misogyny within the church. While many are aware of the scrutiny that Archbishop Sarah may face, they all have faith that she will overcome them, and as the first ever in the church's history, many within the Anglican Communion hope that the new Archbishop continues to trailblaze the way. Naila Mohammed for KMTV in Canterbury.
And Chris Deasy, who you may recognise from the Kent Film Club, but also is Honorary Reader of Theology and Religious Studies, joins me in the studio now. This is obviously a really significant event, Chris, but could having a female archbishop actually divide the faith rather than unite it?
Yeah, I think that's one of the fears. I mean, on the one hand, it's breaking the glass ceiling. And when you think of the many institutions like the American presidency where that hasn't happened, this is a really big deal. And I think that's a moment to savour. But you are right, there are those in the church. And Rowan Williams, the former archbishop, was talking about this yesterday, well, in an article he gave over the course of the last week. And he didn't attend the ceremony yesterday, saying he didn't want to be like Marley's ghost, precisely because there is that risk that the church could split. And I think there is a sense, he says, well, if God doesn't want it to split, it won't. But I think there are many people in the church who came even close to perhaps even setting up a rival archbishop to Sarah Mullally, who was installed yesterday. So, I mean, this is a seismic moment. But you know, I remember 1992 when we had the vote on whether there should be women priests. So that was, what, 34 years ago this year. So it's come a long way. But yes, there are those in the church who will never reconcile with what the, in its 1,400-year-old history, the 106th Archbishop, the first woman to hold that role.
And what kind of scrutiny will she face? What are the issue with people who may think that this isn't right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things is that, I mean, in terms of same-sex marriage, also, I think abuse in the church as well is a really thorny issue, and questions around, well, of course, it related to her predecessor, Justin Welby, and the reason he resigned, and various questions about whether even she did the right thing when she was Bishop of London. So, I mean, effectively, she's inheriting, I'm not going to say poison chalice, that's a pun that I didn't intend, but she is inheriting a role which comes with a lot of expectations.
Mm-hmm. And do you think the community has trust in her to handle some of the issues, like you say, better than people in the past?
Well, do you know what I think here? I think it's like whenever you have a new Prime Minister, they always have a grace period, again, a pun, which is very fitting for the church, but they have a honeymoon period. And I think, you know, even that pilgrimage walk that she did over the course of the last few days from London, and then it went through even Chatham, not far from where we are here, into Chartham as well, and into Canterbury on a Sunday. I think there's a sense in which she's following tradition, but going way back to Thomas Becket. In other words, she's done what other archbishops haven't done. I think a lot of people will give her, I say, the benefit of the doubt, but effectively it's not down to one person. It's the institution which has never agreed on a set of principles. The film Conclave that came out last year in the case of the Catholic Church brought that into stark relief. So, well, we'll see what happens. But I think yesterday there was a sense that a lot of goodwill is coming her way, as we saw in the report just there.
Mm-hmm. Well, lots of people, even those who aren't religious, did watch that yesterday. It's obviously a very momentous occasion and a very, very nice outfit, I've got to say.
Absolutely. And I think it looks wonderfully colourful. And I think it brought a lot of attention for people, as you say, who are not necessarily of faith, but who see this as an important moment in terms of whether it's, I mean, we'll talk about inclusivity. We'll see whether the church can rally behind her on this and people in the community at large.
Thank you so much, Chris. With the first Harry Potter film airing 25 years ago, we've now been told that a new Harry Potter series on the horizon. In early 2027, we hope to see a brand new series of the original franchise with a modern cast and a few new filming locations shared across the country. Henley and Frankie joined me in the studio earlier to discuss a bit more about this. So, Frankie, I'm not a massive Harry Potter fan. I haven't really watched many of the films. How do you think existing fans are going to react to this new series?
I feel like the existing fans will have mixed opinions on it because, first of all, yes, it does increase the amount of fans who are going to get into it, but also the old fans will seem like it's just kind of a remake and that it won't be as good as the original because obviously the original is always going to be better than most things what are remakes.
Mm-hmm. And Henley, I know that Kent was pretty heavily involved in the original films. Do you think it's going to be involved again? What was the previous involvement?
Well, in the previous film, we've seen Dartford Crossing, how they used Dartford Crossing in a scene just to get the atmosphere of it all for the characters. And also they did ask Canterbury Cathedral, but they did deny it because of religious reason, which is fair. But in the now current one that's being made, they aren't really using Kent as much. They're focusing on London and Essex, which I don't know really why. But the only link we have is that Umbridge is still living in Kent, where she was born, with her family.
Very, very cool. And do you think this new series is going to have as big of an impact as it did on the older generation when Harry Potter, all the original films did come out?
Again, it would be mixed opinions. It would be yes, because it's more modernised, and obviously it will appeal to a younger audience. But no, because it's been and done, and kids have shown less attention spans and might have already watched the older Harry Potter films, so they might be like, what's the point of watching this one while we watch the original ones?
Now, I know you weren't a huge Harry Potter fan, but Henley, I know you did watch all of the films. What was it about those original films that had such a big influence?
Well, I just think the actual atmosphere of it all, and also it was so new at the time with the CGI and the focus on witchcraft. And it wasn't quite seen yet or as popularised. So that first breakout of it made everyone so inclined to watch it, and just the press of it all and the just press.
And what are you most excited to see in this upcoming series?
Well, the actors, as we can see, they're going to have their own new spin on it, and they're going to have their own acting techniques. So I think we're quite interested to see how they embody the role they're going to play.
Can they ever live up to, you know, Daniel Radcliffe and the iconic bunch that were in the original film?
It's definitely going to be hard, but this might be their like coming out. It might be where they peak. You never know.
Amazing. So are you going to be going to watch this series then once it comes out, both of you?
I will.
I think I need a bit more persuasion, you know. I need to get more into it. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me, guys.
Thanks.
And now the weather. This evening we're seeing clouds around the board with temperatures highest in the north in Dartford and the lowest down in Ashford. Into tomorrow morning we will see clouds all over with temperatures rising to around 8 to 9 degrees across the county. Into tomorrow evening, wind speeds will increase again to 11 and 15 miles per hour, with temperatures rising up to 12 and 11 degrees. As for the outlook, Saturday we'll be seeing clear skies with 9 degrees, Sunday will be cloudy with 13 degrees, and Monday will be also clear but at 11 degrees. You've been watching Kent Tonight live here on KMTV. There's more news made just for Kent throughout the evening. Don't forget, you can always keep up to date with the latest news from across your county by logging on to kmtv.co.uk. Once again, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.